Life seems particularly hard for quite a lot of people at the moment, and myself included. I feel like life's really throwing a lot of challenges my way very suddenly and in a lot of areas, and I'm trying to juggle a lot of them as best as I possibly can. And it seems to be that when I'm speaking to a lot of people as well, they're balancing the exact same thing in different intensities in different areas, but very much the same thing. It's a balancing act. One thing that I'm really, really careful of, especially compared to my younger self, is this idea that I don't necessarily have to consider anything that I'm doing as a failure. And that's particularly what I want to talk about in this video today, which is how do we reframe failure? How do we go from something being a learning experience and not pretending that it wasn't a failure to some degree, but also learn how we can actually glean something from this? And I recommend a lot of quite technical, quite academic books on this channel, but I'm keeping things very, very simple and straightforward with this one, which is this beautiful book called Wabi Sabi. I'll just put it up here as well. There you go. So hopefully you can sort of screenshot that and actually see what I'm referring to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain a little bit about this book to begin with in terms of what these two words mean, and then show you how I'm using this in my life. You'll be able to see as well, this is going to be a perfectly imperfect video, very much in keeping with the idea of Wabi Sabi. So just to go straight to the very beginning of this book, all the way on page 10, just to go through what these two words actually mean. So Wabi is about finding beauty in simplicity and a spiritual richness and serenity in detaching from the material world. So there's a certain stillness, there's a certain sacredness and beauty in this idea of what wabi is. It's the beauty and simplicity. Compared to sabi, the other word. Sabi is more concerned with the passage of time, with the way that all things grow and decay, and how aging alters the visual nature of those things. So again, it's still associated with beauty, but in a very different way. It's much more to do with this elegant, natural aging with antiquity. There's a refined elegance to it overall. And this is particularly important when we start to then consider how we can actually learn from failure, because no part of this is saying that we need to be perfect, that we need to be on our A game all the time. That's very much a Western mindset, especially in the UK at the minute where I'm living. It seems to be that constantly everything is to do with order and progress and discipline, and there's not much room for actual humanity, if we're being perfectly honest. So I'm slowing this video down and just talking to you human to human in terms of my stories, in terms of how I'm putting something like this into practice, and just making it as useful as possible. So on page 118, Beth Kempton has a really, really nice little step-by-step section on here called 6 Stress-Free Steps to Learning from Failure. So I'm just going to go through them one by one, and let's just see how it actually resonates with you. Again, human to human. First of all, truth. State the facts about what happened. There's been plenty of situations for me in the past couple of weeks, months, years, I would say as well, where I have been able to turn a situation from a complete failure, in my own words, to something which is something I can actually learn from, more of an opportunity. But it all is based on this idea that I need to be able to state the facts of what actually happened. I'm not glossing over them. I'm not putting them in a way that makes me feel better about the situation. I need to look at just the raw material. Imagine that it wasn't me in that situation and I was an observer watching. What could I physically see happening? What were the interactions like between the people? What was going on in real life? Stripping away the subjective part and just looking at it objectively. That's how I use truth in this particular example. And then point 2, it links in really, really similarly. Point 2 is humility. Get clear on who you have been blaming and what role you have played. I've been making a lot of videos recently on this channel to do with shadow work, and that directly appeals to a question like this, because it's really, really easy, if I'm honest with myself, to just blame somebody else. When you've got a boss, when there's someone else in a leadership position, you can just blame them. You can absolve yourself of all the guilt and all the responsibility and just put it on them. But actually, the real learning, if we're going to try to make this a learning from failure opportunity, is we need to think about it as, what have I done to put myself in this situation? How have I been a catalyst in this situation overall? And this has been a very big thing for me. I think it's a big thing for a lot of people, to be honest, where sometimes we can't actually see the truth of the matter because our ego gets in the way. And that's really important to be able to notice when that happens, because there's never going to be a situation where we're not acting from an ego position. We're always going to be doing it. We just need to catch ourselves in the moment so that we can actually backtrack those steps. I'm not saying, hey, you need to live this perfect life where you never make mistakes and you're always this amazing person. All that's going to happen there is you're going to flip into grandiosity, and that's not a healthy place to be in. You've got to be aware of the projections that you're going to be putting out there all the time, but just realizing that they do come from you. So if you throw something out there, you've got to trace that back. So to get clear on who you've been blaming or what role you have played, there is a certain humility that is needed there to be saying, okay, some of this wasn't my fault, but more importantly, some of it was. And how am I going to take responsibility for those parts? More importantly, what am I going to do about that in the future as well? The third part on here is simplicity. Excavate your single greatest learning from the situation. On a very practical level, the way I use something like this is I ask the question, why? Usually ask it 3 or 5 times, and then basically I can get to the bedrock of what's going on underneath. So the situation might be when I was working at a school, there's been a disagreement and everyone's left feeling frustrated. Why is that a problem? Okay, so then I'll get to the next layer of the question there. I'm annoyed because such a person said they were going to do such a thing and they didn't. Why is that a problem? Well, because communication needs to be improved and it needs to be better. Why is that a problem? Well, communication, they're not communicating with me, but more importantly, I realized I sat back and I was quite passive. I didn't ask for communication actively from them. So when I complain about communication, that's a two-way street. So already we've started to get to an idea that there's frustration, but then there's poor communication, then there's my role within poor communication. Why is that a problem still, poor communication? Well, I've realized that in this passivity, I've just sat there expecting somebody else to come to me rather than me being the active agent to solve a problem. So what's happened there is I've realized actually this surface level frustration is nothing. What's really going on at this sort of underneath layer is that my ego again is getting in the way. I'm expecting other people to come to me to solve my problem. And that's not fair. I need to be, if I'm trying to solve a problem like that, I need to be vocal about it. I need to be active about this. The point being on here, simplicity. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at the original story, look at all the symptoms of that story. And if I can ask why is that a problem 3, 4, 5 times, I can get to the simple point underneath it all, which is I was expecting too much of other people. Or the learning might be, I wasn't being the person that I know that I should have been in that situation in a healthy way. The simple idea there links very much over to truth. It links very much over to humility. These aren't hard, clear boundaries. It's understanding what role that you're playing within all of this and making sure that it doesn't just repeat unnecessarily again in the future. Point number 4, impermanence. Identify what was lost, what was gained, and what has changed inside you. I feel like I've naturally been talking about this as I've been going through. When we talk about this idea of impermanence, it might be that we've been really holding on to certain stories in our life and they're just no longer relevant. It might have been true at a particular point in time and it might have been true for years, but it doesn't mean that 10 years later that same story is still true. Maybe we need to let go of it. Maybe we need to learn how to accept that a situation has moved on. For me, that's what impermanence is referring to. It's this idea that everything is constantly changing. I'm constantly changing. All the books that I'm reading are subtly shifting me in one direction over another. And as I'm doing that, as I'm going through this dynamic process, so are other people as well. They're changing in their lives. Maybe they've had a child. Maybe they've got a new job. Maybe they've lost a job. Maybe they're being evicted from their home and I didn't realize that. And they're too embarrassed to be able to raise that. That's all going to have an extremely active relevance in any conversation that I have. So I need to understand impermanence. I need to understand that I'm moving through life as other people are moving through life, and we're just chaotically sort of bumping into each other. This isn't an easy process whatsoever. Point number 5, very closely related, imperfection. Acknowledge what imperfection in yourself and in someone else that you must forgive or embrace to move on, and to remind yourself that imperfection makes you human. It goes back to the start of this video. When I used to think about my values, if we go back 10 years ago, I was this person who you could accurately describe me and a machine in the same way. I valued progress, I valued efficiency, I valued order, I valued discipline. Anything that fell out of this extremely narrow band basically meant that it was wrong because it was imperfect. And what I've been able to do with all of this, especially on this idea of imperfection, is learn how to separate all those ideas. Suddenly, failure and imperfection and wrong and ineffective don't mean the same thing anymore. These are separate terms. And that's important because very, very often I want now something to be imperfect. This video, as an example, if you're a long-time viewer on this channel, you'll notice that I don't really do cuts. I don't really do edits. I keep all the silences in. When I fall over my sentences and I choose the wrong word, I keep it all in because it's authentic. And I know that some people in the comments might be saying, oh my God, you're going too long, or these videos are too slow. That's fine. You can compare me to faster paced channels. But what I'm trying to do with this is to create a very human experience where I'm speaking to you and sharing what it is that I've learned through these books to encourage you to read these books yourself and to start your journey with it all. My backdrop has been as a teacher working with students, but it's not that I'm at the front of the room dictating everything. It's a relationship. There's a give and there's a take. There's a ebb and there's a flow. When there's this unchanging dynamic, it becomes far too intense. It's much more living like the desert where it's too hot, it's too intense. If there's no shade anywhere to have that respite, it's overbearing because it's so unchanging. What you need in a desert is the shade. You need the river, you need the coldness. But then if you have just that and not the desert, then suddenly the shade is too cold. Suddenly the river is, again, it's freezing, so that it's going to cause a problem in and of itself. What we need is to have access to the desert and have access to the river. Have access to the heat as well as to the shade. You might word this in terms of the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine. But the whole point of this is we need to ebb and flow with the tides. When I think about perfection, I'm thinking about it in terms of how am I in line with nature, with myself, with the other person that I'm talking to, and where is that give and take? Just as I was explaining that point there, I realized that I'm using my hands quite a lot, and that's coming through very much. I'm not sat rigidly here just talking at you and lecturing at you. It's much more of a conversation because that's what I want this to be. I want this to be imperfect. Acknowledging what imperfections are within me, again, that is shadow work. It's understanding my story and realizing which parts I want to leave in the past and also which parts I like to integrate into the future as well. And then this final point just on incompleteness. Recognize that this is not the end of the story and decide what you will do next. I'm trying to very much understand with a lot of this that a lot of the beauty is not so much in the achievement as it is within the process and the journey towards that achievement, which I know is now very much like a trite observation, and you might hear that quite a lot online. But for me, that's been absolutely pivotal because I used to put a lot of my self-worth on the end result and the end result only. It was, did I achieve exactly within these parameters what I wanted to achieve? And if not, then I'm a failure. And the whole point of this is we're trying to learn from failure. We're trying to make sure that this is going to be an imperfect process, and that's okay because a human being is imperfect. That's very much the whole point towards this. So when I'm thinking here, recognizing that this is not the end of the story, it's understanding that if I'm spontaneous and I can be in touch with my body and the sensations and I can interpret those signals, that I can start to pivot in one way or another. Maybe the future that I set out to plan when I was just thinking about it in some armchair a few years ago, of course I'm not going to be able to figure out every single thing that's going to happen in that time period. Life is too dynamic, it's too free-flowing. The question is, can I go with that free-flowing dynamic, or am I going to stick rigidly to my plan and that's all? But if I do that, then essentially all I'm going to become is just some caricature of a few separate traits and a few different values. Think to Greek mythology, think about how all the problems that all the gods get into, because they can be described so stereotypically. They are unfalteringly wise or courageous or strong or whatever else it might be. And that goes very, very well for them to a certain extent, but that is exactly the fatal flaw that exists within their character, which means that they get into trouble. And it's why there's a lot of disagreements. It's why there's wars that erupt and battles. And if you know your Greek mythology, everything else that surrounds all of that. So rather than me or anybody else taking on the role of the gods and being archetypally inflated and taking on this impossible role where I'm just going to become grandiose if I associate myself with this idea of the unchanging divine, what I'm going to do instead is accept that I'm an imperfect and incomplete version of, let's say, wisdom, given that is something that I value. I don't want to be the embodiment of wisdom. I want to be an imperfect example of what it is to be wise. And that's the journey that I'm on. I'm always learning, and I'm always trying to learn from other people in various different ideas as well. But again, all of this is because I'm living this perfectly imperfect life. That's what I want all of this to be about. And that's what I want to make really, really clear as I'm going through this. I realise this has been a bit more of a free flow kind of video. And it's gone on for about 15-16 minutes to my best knowledge just looking at this. But I would really highly recommend this. And again, just make sure you take into account those 6 steps. I want to do more conversational videos on this channel, very much like that one, as well as teaching in a more direct way as well. So some of these videos will be much more fast-paced, some of them will be slow-paced. And I've mentioned shadow work a few times in this video as well. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that there's a video that will pop up anytime around now, which will take you towards one of those if you're interested in taking it further. Until then, I'll see you soon.